Thanks, fellas. As they come around turn 4 and down the short chute toward the tri-oval, Cece's Pizza presents our track description of this 2.5-mile tri-oval. Steeply banked in the corners, the highest banked super speedway ever built when it was constructed for the 1959 season.
Well, you know, Mike, we were just talking about how many laps somebody's going to run. I just heard them talk about 30, 35 laps. That sounds like a lot of laps, but the engine guys, believe it or not, they like to put 50 miles, 75 miles on their engine so they can look at it tonight with the borescope, look down inside the cylinders, be sure everything's right. Well, we've got a little traffic jam here on the racetrack.
Well, Mark Martin was backing up big time in that 5. We're looking at him right there.
But they want to be sure that when they shut this car down today, that engine is healthy, and you got to put a few miles on it to be sure that everything is it's going to be all right.
Larry, when they make this engine change and install it, other than getting out on the racetrack and running, what procedures do they go through to make sure that everything's tightened up, that there's no leaks? But oftentimes we'll see a fellow go out for practice. Oh, there's somebody left an oil line loose. Somebody left a plug wire. Somebody left. Somebody did almost everything right.
You know, honestly, we don't see that a lot in Sprint Cup. We may see it in some of the other series, but there's no question with these teams at the racetrack, you have a procedure. And even though these guys don't go through a lot of engine changes at the racetrack because of the engine rule, everybody has their specific job, and that's what you focus on. And when you know you've only got one practice, sometimes you almost treat it like a checklist, that everyone goes through their procedure like they would on race morning.
This engine is like delivering a baby. This thing has been nurtured. It's probably been tuned on, worked on. It's probably been assembled and disassembled a couple of times just to make sure that there are no issues once that engine goes in this car, because this is the money engine. This is the one that's going to bring you to it's one that's going to bring you home to the checkered flag. You don't want to have some silly thing happen to it that should have been caught back at the shop.
That's a great analogy.
You know, looking at Jeff Gordon, the 24 car there, and we just saw Jeff Burton in the 31. I-95 and I-77 between Daytona and Charlotte has been a very busy couple of interstates. This race car right here, this is the car that Jeff Gordon ran in the shootout last Saturday. It went back to Charlotte, had to have a whole right side put on it, part of a nose. It did not get back here until early yesterday morning. In the same case almost with the 31 car of Jeff Burton. That's his shootout car. It had to go back to Welcome, North Carolina, and they had to put a whole side and a tail on it. It didn't get back here until Wednesday.
Now, you know, you have to take them to the R&D center to get them certified if you change a clip, front or rear clip. But for the body, you can come back here, and they got the claw and everything here. So I don't think you have to go back to get it certified just for body work.
Yeah, those cars did not, but we saw Mark Martin a while ago. Now, this is not a backup car for Mark Martin, as we know he's going to start on the pole, but the car that he wrecked in Budweiser shootout practice, that car did go back, had to go back to the R&D center because part of a front clip had to be put on it. All the body redone, and it's back in Daytona as another backup.
Wow. Another reason for this practice is finding friends and people who can help you. Here's Jeff Gordon giving a little helping hand to Kurt Busch down the straightaway. That's from Denny Hamlin's onboard camera.
That was a Miller Lite bump draft.
A light bump draft.
A light, yes.
You know, we did a show yesterday, and Darrell talked about this, and I think we all knew this is what it was going to be. You know, you go back to the Talladega race where NASCAR basically said no bump drafting. But they said, coming here, guys, you're on your own. You monitor it. And honestly, in the dual races, that's what I saw. They bump drafted when they needed to. They did it on the straightaway. They didn't do it in the corners. The drivers took care of it themselves.
Most of the time you do something stupid here, unfortunately, you're going to get in it too.
And that's what happened in the Budweiser shootouts. Everybody figured out, ooh, you just can't bump all the way around here in Talladega. They knew that, but they weren't willing to believe it, perhaps, until after the Budweiser shootout.
And it was the last lap.
Well, yes, of course.
That too.
And more on that in a little while, because the last lap routine has changed. Speed's presentation of Sprint Cup Final Practice from Daytona is brought to you by Hershey's Milk and Milkshakes. Try a new way to indulge in Hershey's. By Alien vs. Predator, 2010's biggest multi-species, multiplayer event. And by the Sponsifier. Visit ToyotaRacing.com. Click on it, design it, enter it.
I love.
That's
a Rudiman.
Such a funny campaign.
He's just so, so nonchalantly walks by. It's funny.
Dick Berggren.
Joey Logano has spent quite a while here in the garage, Mike. They were mostly working under the hood, changed the carburetor, also checked the timing. Then they checked to see if the front wheels were spinning properly. Logano, very little speed. He's way at the bottom of the speed chart. Steve.
Dick, Juan Pablo Montoya ran just 3 laps in the open of practice. In fact, he's just now walking back to his race car. Juan told crew chief Brian Patty, if nothing else in this practice, no matter what we change, I want this car to be comfortable. Brian Patty saying it's temperature-wise, it's way too cold. Track conditions, very cold. He said we're going to make a couple of planned adjustments. We might run about 15 more laps, and that'll be it.
And the comfort thing now is the big issue, because we're not going to run these short races. We're not going to go out there and, run 15, 20 lap heat races anymore, or that much practice. You're going to be in this race car for 3.5 hours Sunday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, when it counts, when it's the most money, when it's most points. So right now the driver knows that the only way he can get the job done is he can't be fighting that race car all afternoon if they expect him to get a top, a shot at winning.
I see Matt Kenseth in the 17 car, and I see Elliott Sadler in the 19, a couple of Fords. There's been a big debate all week long. In fact, we had Jack Roush on our trackside show last week about the new FR9 Ford engine. Most all of the Fords had them in for the shootout for qualifying, but a lot of them were looking like they were going to go back to the old package. But Matt Kenseth the 17, Sadler the 19, and Bill Elliott in the 21, they have elected to go with the new FR9 engine. And when you think about it, Kenseth and Elliott were the 2 fastest Fords in qualifying a week ago.
So that's one of the Roush Fenway cars, one of the Petty Motorsports cars, and the Wood Brothers team.
Correct.
And what I think Jack must feel pretty confident, because he said they would take the engines out of the cars, pull them down, and look at them. And the areas that they've been having problems with, and I'm not sure what those areas are, valve train would be my guess. If everything looked okay after the amount of miles they had on them, they'd feel pretty comfortable about letting those guys race them.
All right, Jack was comfortable, but I'm going to give real credit where credit's due. Doug Yates has almost been up night and day, and his people at the Roush Yates engine shop dynoing on the Spintron, testing these parts to feel comfortable enough to put these engines in for 500 miles on Sunday.
Well, I don't know what engines they've I read somewhere where there were 46 teams down here through Speed Weeks and the 24-hour race that were using Yates engines.
Wow.
And Roush Yates engines. Yep. So you'd think out of all those engines that they'd have a pretty good idea what was good and what was bad.
But you're right. That's not 46 engines. That's 46 teams.
Right. I don't know how many. No telling how many engines. Jimmie Johnson seemed to be pretty comfortable leading this pack around here.
Darryl, you're right on the getting comfortable, and I think that was a huge approach, especially since the dual races on Thursday. A lot of the teams have got less aggressive with the front springs. They've got the cars up off the ground. NASCAR also gives you an option of a heavier right rear spring, keep that right rear wing propped up in the air. A lot of them has went to those heavier right rear springs.
Plus now's when those shocks that we keep talking about, the rear shocks, where if you close the valve off in the back all the way, that's as aggressive as you can make that shock, and it will hold the back of the car down and make the car run fast, particularly down the straightaway, but it'll make it a little hard to drive through the bumps. So it wouldn't surprise me if most of these guys would probably open those shocks all the way up to get the softest ride and over the bumps that they could possibly get.
All right, Jeff Burton still quickest. Kevin Harvick, Marcus Ambrose, David Rudiman, and Matt Kenseth are the Fast Five right now. Steve?
Jeff Gordon in the garage, Mike Joy, and Jeff's report is not only about the car but about running in traffic. He says that the car is just a little bit free. The good news is no vibrations, no unusual noises. He is saying that when you're running the bottom line of the racetrack and somebody pulls out behind you, it kills your momentum. So not only are they looking at the car, but they're also talking about where they want to be in traffic.
And one of the things I heard him say about this car was it had a little too much downforce and a little too much drag, and they were going to take some of that out. And the first thing I thought of is, yeah, but they'll be putting it right back in. I guarantee you that, because we're talking about, again, running 500 miles here on Sunday, and that car needs to have a little drag and a little downforce in it, not out of it.
4 cars have yet to practice. John Andretti has not logged a lot of laps all week. Joe Nemechek still in the garage. Michael McDowell, one of the race-in cars, and Robert Richardson, who's locked in on points.
You know, one thing, speaking of engines, Larry, I don't recall, and you maybe remember better than I, anybody having any engine issues while we've been down here?
They really have.
I don't remember seeing anybody go up in smoke. So I don't know that anybody's had a problem with any engines down here the whole time.
And that's surprising, going to that bigger plate, knowing they're turning a little more RPM and everything.
Yep.
Joe Nemechek's picked up a around goes Bobby Labonte.
Oh, no.
Missed it by that much.
Wow.
Attaboy. Good save, bud.
Good job, buddy. Good job.
Not what you want to do in final practices.
Well, it wasn't his fault, Larry. I can't remember who was on the outside of him, but whoever's on the outside of him gets loose. Let's see who it is here. Somebody here gets loose. There you go.
Scott Speed. And just got into the side of
And when he corrected, boy, Bobby is, look at that. Oh.
You see those rear wheels spinning all the way to keep him off that wall.
That's a whale of a good job. That's
a champion right there.
That's a good job, buddy. I don't care.
Watch the red 71 on the bottom behind the Napa car.
Now let's take a look at the rear wheels to see if they ever spin backwards.
No, he's digging. He was either locked on the brake or hard on the throttle to get away from that wall.
And of course, my concern on that is spinning the engine backwards.
Comes out of there. He's in the gas right there, Larry. He's got it wide open, trying to. The car got a little bit light. Did you notice that, Larry? How the back of the car got a little bit light, but it set back down.
And then as soon as it points away from the wall, he's flat on the gas.
Well, when that thing starts to go around and the back's headed for the wall, he nails it wide open again. You can see his tires just spinning.
But you can definitely see the roof flaps deploying right there.
I noticed when the car comes off the track and when it starts to go around a little bit, the back gets light, but it sets right back down.
The other thing I noticed, those little cow flaps at the base of the windshield, they opened up. All that's part of a package to keep the car on the ground.
Last evening, rain and the amount of time it would have taken to dry the track after the rain stopped postponed the Camping World Truck Series lid lifter. You will see it tonight. 6:30 p.m. coverage begins right here on Speed.
You know, Darrell, every week at the racetrack, whether it's practice or the race, I think you, Jeff, all of us, we talk about when the track cools down, it gains grip. But I think no matter where we're at, you can jump the fence. When it gets this cold, you almost start losing grip again.
First of all, there's no heat in the track. That means it takes longer for the tires to get a little heat in them. And these tires are pretty hard down here. They have to be. And so it just takes, it does. It's almost as bad as being too hot.
Speed building for Dale Jr.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see some of the speeds into turn 3 because I've been under the assumption just by watching it, it's closer to 200 mile an hour than we've probably seen in a long time here at Daytona. Normally it levels right out, about 192, 93 mile an hour. But
we'll drive us a lap around Daytona with Junior.
Yeah, we're coming off turn 4, and this is just coming down to the start-finish line. Of course, we watched Junior's hands in the qualifying race, but one thing we just noticed that we kind of didn't notice is see how he takes his right hand and actually shifts it, which makes it look like he might be cranking more on the wheel than we thought he was. But that's a long way down there with that left hand as well. And if you see the car goes through the bumps, he's doing exactly what you want a car to do. You don't want it to have to turn left, right, left, right. You want to pull it to a little tug to the left. That means the car is comfortable, snug. And now he's going down the back, and it's just that's a cakewalk there until somebody runs up there and pops you real good.
191, Darrell, into turn 3.
But you can see the car move around, and the movement of the car is reflective in his hands. You see his hands kind of juking around a little bit through the turn. You'll see it more in 1 and 2 because the bumps are much bigger there. And they're not bumps, they're dips. The car, it's like going across water almost. Watch the car when he goes down into turn 1 here, and he may even try to avoid, well, we got cars here he's going to pass. It's smooth up around the top.
And he was 190 into turn 1. Carl Edwards right behind him.
And watch him go down the back. And again, this is when you can relax for now, because there's no one around you except Carl Edwards coming up behind you. Let's see where he goes when Carl gets here. He's going to have to take a look. He's going to go high. It's pretty smooth up around the top. See Carl's car duck walking a little bit.
No pun intended.
No, no pun intended.
We won't hear that again all season much, will we? Berge.
A lot of work going on with Matt Kenseth's car, Mike, right now. They have changed the left front spring on it. Chip Bowlen, the engineer, has been here. Doug Yates, the engine builder, has checked all 8 of the spark plugs. Biggest problem is he's bouncing the car off the racetrack itself. It's up on scales now, so they can try to get the ride height where they want it so that the car will run as low as possible without hitting the speedway. But Kenseth has been here for a long time.
And that seems like something that everyone has been challenged with all week long. Budweiser Shootout and Daytona 500 cars is you don't want the cars way up off the racetrack, but you don't want it bottoming out and hitting it either.
All right, all 43 cars have now been on track to practice. You just saw John Andretti flash by, and so everyone has had a turn at the track. One fellow who had a few more turns than he would have liked is Bobby Labonte. Let's go talk to him.
Mike's still sitting in his race car, and Bobby, I've seen a lot of different mechanics, engineers in and out of the window. First of all, what is the damage to the car?
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen it, but everybody says it's not bad.
It was a pretty amazing save coming off 4.
I don't think I did a whole lot. It saved itself a lot of ways. But yeah, fortunately we didn't get tore up, and we'll get back out there in a few minutes.
Thank you, Bobby.
See, drivers have to be cool. You know, they can't take any credit for it. You know, it's, Bobby Labonte saved this car.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I don't care what he says. Brake, that's gas. He's thinking. He didn't just let go and say, well, she's going to hit the wall. As a driver, he knows what he needs to do to keep it off the wall. And so, you know, is sort of nonchalant and oh, I didn't have anything to do with it that he said he had everything to do with it.
You won't find a cooler set of hands in the garage area than the Labonte brothers, Bobby and Terry.
See Juan Pablo Montoya back out there in the 42 car. Remember the report on him a while ago that he was not very comfortable with that 42 car.
A lot of people think that 18 car, Larry, has got a good shot at winning this race. You know, he probably should have won 2 Daytona 500s already. He has a 400 win. Let's see how he looks like. He's very comfortable in the car. When you see the car going around the racetrack and you don't see any of that shaking of the wheel, that means that the front end's working right and that the car is really handling well. Now, those quick hand moves like that, that's okay. But look, he's just working the car. He's just wanting the car to go where he wants it to, and he's giving it those quick jukes. But if you watch a lot of the guys, even when they're going straight, sometimes the wheel is shaking a little bit. He looks very smooth and comfortable in the car.
Now, Kyle Busch will be one of the drivers running 550 miles
Especially
today.
in traffic.
Right about now, you'd like to be Jeff Burton. He has the fastest individual lap and the best 5 consecutive laps and the second best 10 consecutive laps, second best to his Childress teammate Kevin Harvick.
You know, we said, you know, Boyer had a tire problem in practice, and then Jeff had a tire problem in the qualifying race. And I heard him say, and I mentioned, I said, that's got to be a team issue, a setup issue. And I heard Burton say that they felt like it was a little too aggressive on the camber. But you got to remember something about Jeff Burton. I think every practice we've had, Larry, he's been at the top of the sheet. Had one of the quickest cars ever in all the practice sessions, but it hadn't parlayed too much out on the race in the race itself.
Yeah, I think I heard that same interview, and he made note of that. He said, you know, I know at the end of the day, like I always say, the box score is what counts.
Yeah.
He said our box score of the Budweiser Shootout and in the dual race does not reflect how we've run down here.
They got practice down pat, though.
They do
got that.
Coverage begins at noon tomorrow on Fox. 52nd running of the Great American Race.
And you know what, Mike? I've been thinking about this, you know, because people keep saying, who's going to win the race? Who's your pick? There's about 20 guys you could pick that could possibly win this race. this Daytona 500, more than any I can remember, I don't think there is a clear-cut favorite in the field.
I don't see one, Darrell.
Nobody just jumps out and says this guy here has got the car to beat, and it's the guy that they're all going to have to follow all day. We've seen that down here in the past, a couple of years ago with the Toyotas maybe, and you know, other times when good dominating cars have been, but I don't see it.
What I'm afraid of is to pick a winner for tomorrow. Everybody's got a good car. Everybody's got a lot of horsepower. Everybody can run well in the draft. I think two factors. Larry, who has the best pit crew? I think that's going to be a big factor. And who is willing to do whatever it takes, no matter what.
You're right, Mike. I mean, you know, you just look back at our last 3 Daytona 500s NASCAR on Fox. We didn't have a clue who was going to win this thing almost when they were at the end of the back straightaway come to take the checkered flag. Our last 3 winners at the end of the race maybe led a total of 3 or 4 laps combined. It's almost, I told somebody earlier this week, you can have the best handling car, you can have the best engine package, you know, flawless pit stops, but it's like, I think Darrell used the analogy, choosing the right checkout line at the grocery store when you get to going into turn 3 and 4.
Yeah, you check out with $1.5 million though if you get it right. Steve?
With Jimmie Johnson and Jimmie, I heard you guys say on the radio you are all done. So are we happy with the way things are going for Sunday's race?
Yeah, we've been real happy with this backup car. It's been great to us. In the shootout, it didn't run like we wanted it to, but I think we're still trying to sort out what we needed for a setup with the new rule changes. We found that stuff out in the practice sessions, and then the duel, obviously, things went well. We took off the pit road there and led, you know, for the amount of laps we wanted to run and put time on the engine and the components. Car drives great, so life is good. We're going to go into our race prep now and get this low ball ready to race.
Jimmie, 4 consecutive championships. How do you continue to challenge yourself?
Man, I like to live life scared and worried about you know, maintaining, or worried about just keeping a job for that matter. I like to keep it simple, and with all of that in mind, it's a new year, there's new challenges, and here we go once again. So hopefully we can keep it up.
Good luck, man.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at Jimmie Johnson's week so far here in Daytona. Wednesday's practice. Wind was right in the midst of all that when Mike Bliss hit the wall. Not a lot of damage to the car, but away it went. Thursday in the Gatorade duel. He stayed out when everyone else ducked in for tires and must have felt like a lonely man until the last lap when he nipped Kevin Harvick at the finish line.
And every driver behind him was laughing.
Yeah, got him.
We got him.
Yeah, not so fast.
But let's talk about the relationship that Chad Knaus and Jimmie Johnson have. You know, they've been together since 2002, since his rookie season. And when he wrecked that car, was involved in that wreck on Wednesday, kind of a victim, pulled it in the garage area, and he thought there was no question. Let's just fix this car.
Sure.
And he challenged Chad. Chad closed his notebook and said, we will go to the backup car. Jimmie walked away and said, okay. But he walked away with confidence that Chad Knaus was making the right decision, just like on Thursday when Chad said, stay out.
You know, and part of Chad's decision was, why would I want to take a car that I've got to beat around on to run the biggest race of the year? Why would I want to put myself in that situation? What if I fixed this car and somewhere during the race somebody said the car's not good, there's something wrong with it aerodynamically, and it's too late, can't fix it then? So I knew he'd go get his backup.
Chad with Ron Malik, the car chief, and the fellows who make that machine go all the way to the banquet for Jimmie Johnson. You want your shot on the speed stage? You could be part of the wildest collection of talent ever assembled at Trackside. Singers, dancers, comedians, and more. In a breakthrough racing entertainment hour, Fast Track to Fame premieres Monday, March 1st, right here on Speed.
Oh, DW.
Yes.
The word on the street is Brother Michael is tuning his singing voice to enter that little contest.
You know what? Listen, I guarantee he'll have something to do with it. I don't know what, but he'll have something to do with it.
For every audition, there's a William Hung, and Michael could be our William. Remember him on American Idol? The guy became famous for having the worst singing voice in public in history. cut an album. what was the song he did? It was, oh God, it was horrendous.
Yeah.
She bangs. Oh gosh,
Don't even go there.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right up my brother's alley, though. I got a feeling he'll be a star of that show somehow.
Tony Stewart, 20th on the board. The Office Depot Chevy.
And he's the guy we've been talking a lot about. You know, he looked awfully good in that dual race. And I think this is one of the teams Darian Grubb is crew chief, because when you look at the Hendrick cars, the Hendrick related cars, he was by far the slowest in qualifying, well off the pace of the other cars. But I think they came here with a car that they can race, and he's still looking for that first Daytona 500 win.
He's still got to be stinging from 2 years ago when he and Kyle had the two best cars in the field, led the race all day long. Coming down there at the end of the day, thinks he's probably got it won. He's got his teammate right behind him pushing him, and here comes two Dodges out of nowhere.
Yep.
And blew right by him, and of course we know what happened after that.
Let's get out of the garage and Dick Berggren.
Marcus Ambrose has the third quickest car, but he is very unhappy with its behavior. The car is quite twitchy. As a result, they have just changed the front anti-roll bar, front shock absorbers, and right now they're working on the geometry on the right front corner of this car. As fast as it is, it's a handful.
And Doc, that's what the drivers are all talking about, trying to get the car comfortable. Yeah, we can make it fast. We can lock it down. We can turn those shocks on the back and pull it back down, and it'll be all over the racetrack. It'll run fast for a couple of laps, but it won't run fast for 500 miles.
You know, we had the pleasure of having lunch with Tad and Jody Geschecter, Brad Daughtery, the owners of that 47 car. And, you know, we kind of give off bad information or wrong information sometimes. You know, they have an alliance with Michael Waltrip Racing. In fact, we're riding with one of the Michael Waltrip Racing cars right now, Martin Truex Jr. But that car is not owned by Michael Waltrip Racing. Tad just felt like the smartest thing he could do if he's going to have a technical alliance is rent some shop space and keep the teams all together if they're going to work together.
Martin Truex alongside the team he left at the end of 2009. That's Jamie Mack, the new driver in the Bass Pro Shops #1.
You know, guys, I tell you, one thing I would work on, if I were a driver and I were a crew chief, I would want to know that I could get into the third turn running wide open and cut to the bottom and be able to zip around the bottom, because what I've seen is there's so much speed down that back straightaway. When you hit the third turn, your car wants to wash up the racetrack, or you got to lift out of the throttle and you lose your momentum. But Dale Jr., just a second ago there, going into the third turn, he came from halfway down the back straightaway all the way up to behind Martin Truex there. It looked like he had a turbo. Watch this thing. He's coming down the back, and watch him when he cuts this thing to the bottom. He's going to run over poor Martin.
Wow.
And for the most part, all of those cars are wide open.
Yeah.
That's just how much of a push he got down into turn 3.
If you can hold it wide open, get that kind of push, get that kind of draft, and you can run that bottom wide open without lifting, I think that's going to pay big dividends.
You know what that is? That's old school. That's the old slingshot, Darrell.
Yeah, it's kind of
draft up behind him and swoop on by. I like it.
Scoot him up out of the way.
Speed's coverage of Sprint Cup final practice is brought to you by Camping World, introducing the all-new Coleman travel trailers, now available at Camping World. By DirecTV, to get the most out of your high-def TV, you got to hook up to DirecTV. 1-800-DirecTV. And by Napa Know-How.
You know, Mike, we were talking about speeds and how fast you're getting into third turn. 4610 is 195 miles an hour average around the racetrack. That's getting it on, boys. I don't think we've seen speeds like that down here in a long time. About 188, maybe 90. So we're 5 miles, a good 5 mile an hour faster than what we've been here in the past. Let's see, let's take a look at Denny Hamlin here. His car's been one of the faster cars. See, he comes off turn 2 there at 185 miles an hour. Should get a good little pull here off of Jamie McMurray. Gonna run up the outside, 189, 90. Yikes, get a little tight right there. Got to pull off of Elliott Sadler here. Still only seeing 190 miles an hour into the third turn.
Denny has run the most laps of anybody. He's come to complete 31 laps. You know, we had Denny on our trackside show last night, and he said, you know, the car's good. He said we're missing something. Something's just not quite what we need, I think, to really be a dominant race car, or, you know, get up there and run at the very front.
Yeah, they're fighting something in that car, because when he gets around other race cars, I think more than any other fast car out there, his is a little bit unpredictable. It moves around a good bit, and then
I don't recall seeing any of the Gibbs cars in the top 5 on the practice sheets.
Yeah, they're okay, but they're
right.
just, you know, you go back to even Talladega back in the fall. That 11 car, till he had engine failure, was probably one of the best cars there. Boy, Elliott Sadler got real loose when Denny Hamlin got right there at his left rear quarter panel.
I really believe, Larry, there's something going on with that shark fin that causes these. Look at Elliott. He's trying to get out of there. Back off, back off. I think he must have a tire down or something. Give me some room, or else, or else it's so evil he just can't hold on to it.
But Darrell, you're right that, you know, now that we've been down here, nobody really had any track testing. The shark fin is that fin down the left side of the back window. We've always had it there, but it's an inch taller now. But the real difference is as you see, it extends down the deck lid underneath the rear wing, and there's feeling that may be making these cars just a little unstable. Not a bad thing. I think the more unstable these cars are, sometimes I think the better racing that we have, that makes them have to work on them and get them to handling good.
I don't mind them being unstable. That's okay. That's the driver's job, just to hang on to it. But I don't like them being unpredictable.
Right.
I don't like to be in a situation where I got it, and whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
And so sometimes these aerodynamic tricks that we play with these cars put you in that box.
Let's check with Steve.
Mike, yesterday, Carl Edwards said that A.J. Allmendinger would be a good sleeper pick to win the Daytona 500, saying he had one of the fastest cars in the dual race on Thursday. Ironically, right now, Allmendinger looking for a little more speed, saying, Mike, that his car is bogging down and the shocks were a little bit too harsh over the bumps. They've changed the shocks. They're getting ready to put him back out on the racetrack with 4 new tires.
Wow. Yeah, Allmendinger's 23rd on the practice chart right now.
But based on how he ran in the dual race, you go back to last year, top 5 finish. If I was one of those fantasy racers, I think A.J. Allmendinger would be one of my picks.
Ambrose and Rudiman. It's hard to tell at speed, but those are roses down the side of the 47.
Oh yeah, you can see it once you point that out. I thought it were cinnamon buns, but
nope, those are roses from Kroger there, and
which would be an appropriate place to have them, you know,
to remind us all to have our shopping done for tomorrow.
But we were told yesterday, unknown to me, that Kroger is the world's, I think you saw it on the back, the world's largest florist. They sell more flowers than anyone.
Dick Berggren.
Clint Boyer, looks like you're all done. Which of the RCR cars is the best?
I think they're all really good. I think our engine package is the biggest. I'd say that's our best package, you know. This motor ran really, really good here in practice. It's just really hard to try to focus on what you need. You know, as cool as it is out this morning, you know, I needed to free up from our dual race. We did. I think we've went enough. I don't know. Only time will tell. We got a little bit of adjustability built into the car. Just having fun, you know. It's just so much fun to be able to draft at Daytona like this. Our Cheerios, Hamburger Helper Chevrolet. I was really worried about the backup car. After that dual race, all the worries went away. So I'm excited.
Good for you. Thanks. Boyer's 11 laps total, 6th fastest average on the day.
And he's not kidding, Mike. It is fun. When you've got a good race car down here and you can go where you want to, use the draft, use it to your advantage, it's a lot of fun.
And don't use it up in practice.
That's right.
All 3 Childress cars among those with the best 10-lap average in this practice session. Tomorrow on Speed, before the Daytona 500, Speed is there in Daytona with the ultimate pre-race show, NASCAR Race Day. There's no better place to get revved up for the great American race. NASCAR Race Day, built by the Home Depot, is live tomorrow, 9 Eastern Time, only on Speed.
You know, he's talking about how many laps to put on the motor and what you like to see. One of the things that's always I've been always curious about is, back in the day there was a rule. Now this is back in the day, okay? So don't get excited. But back in the day, for every 1,000 RPM the engine turned, it needed 10 pounds of oil pressure. That's what it took to make the engine survive. Today, it's about half that. These engines run around here with probably 40 pounds of oil pressure, 45, because of the way the oiling systems are in the engines now versus the way ours was. But that is a critical tuning thing. Too much oil pressure will slow the engine down, creates turbulence in the engine, gets too much oil flying around it. So they try to get that absolutely on the minimum, not on the maximum. I always like a little cushion. If 40 was good, I think I might need 50 just for insurance.
You know, just watching Regan Smith in this 78 car, because we had so much going on in the dual races with who was going to win the race, how close the finish was, who was getting in. He messed around there and quietly finished 5th in that dual race. This team has elected to run the full schedule. Boy, cut right down in front of David Reagan knowing that 6th. It was close, but this team has elected to run the full schedule in 2010. And when a lot of other teams have been cutting back and laying people off, this race team based out of Denver, Colorado hired over 20 additional people to get ready for this new season. And they formed the alliance with Richard Childress Racing, and this team is locked in because they pretty much did the partnership or the merger to take over the 0-7 points from last year.
How much you reckon it costs to form an alliance with someone? What would that, I mean, what would be a number you think that if you went to Richard Childress and said, I want you to provide me cars, motors, all the technical stuff you can, what do you think you're looking? You got any idea?
I think you take the cost of running the 4th team and back out the personnel, Darrell, because if you're going to provide all the equipment and the engines, you've got all the hard costs and the upkeep costs. You just don't have your people in the shop working on those cars. So I bet it's a lot.
You should know. You've heard what I think the engine number is if you just went to Hendrick Motorsports and leased engines for the year. I mean, I think that's up in the $4 or $5 million range,
6,
right?
I think.
Okay, so that right there,
for all engines, practice, racing, and the whole thing, I think it's about 6 now, 5.5 or 6 million, just for motors. But you know that, believe it or not, the car is the cheapest thing we have.
Yeah, it is now, isn't it?
You can put a car together, get a rolling chassis, put a body on it, and probably not have $10,000, $12,000 in it.
Well, let's meet another fellow who has a brand new deal for 2010. Here's Dick.
And that's Jamie McMurray. Are you used to the new team, the new car, the new uniform?
Yeah, it's all new stuff. It's been a really good experience so far with Kevin and everybody on the Bass Pro Shops team. We ran really well in the shootout, and then we just got our car too loose for the 150 on Thursday. But they just did some stuff in the front end, and the car's got a lot more grip. So it's hard to tell because of the weather that we have now. But I feel really good. Handling is so big here, and the guys that can really put their car where they need to, and it's not much from good to bad, and they've made my car quite a bit better, so pretty happy with it.
How about a fishing tournament yesterday? Were you involved in that?
Yeah, I actually got to go fishing with Johnny Morris from Bass Pro Shops, so that was a good experience for me and a great time for us to just get to hang out. There's certainly no better place to make a friendship than on the water fishing, so that was fun for me. And Johnny actually brought along one of his friends, and a guy that does some work for Bass Pro, and he can imitate just about anybody on TV. So we had a great experience yesterday.
I think maybe landing this ride might have been the best catch you've had this year.
Wonder who they were imitating. Well, I don't wonder. This happened a couple laps ago. Look at that threesome with Menard there, and in the middle Logano, and up top Regan Smith. Here comes Casey Kane.
That was down in 1 and 2 down there, and 20 went in. He got a great run. He went in, and he really did a slide job on Regan in the 78, but everybody got through it all right.
Whoa,
it's almost like his car walked up the racetrack when he got to the outside of Paul Menard in that 98.
As my great friend from the past, Robert G, used to say, that won't pretty right there.
Steve.
Mike got an update on Tony Stewart in the 14. Tony saying that it's better than it was, but he said we're off on our platform. It gets loose into turn 1, then it's tight all over. Platform is a word we hear a lot down here, words like package. Maybe you guys can explain platform a little better.
What do you make of platform?
Attitude. I think what he's talking about is the balance of the car front to rear. I know we talk about the rear shocks a lot, but I think if you get them too aggressive, you get the back pulled down, the nose comes up. And then the car will actually porpoise through those. You know, we talked about the track doesn't have bumps, it has waves, and you get the back down and it wants to porpoise.
Hey, Darrell.
I think that's what he's feeling. Yeah, buddy.
Darrell, that's exactly what they're working on right now, rear shocks on the 14.
Yeah.
Yikes! Brian Vickers. Oh my gosh.
He's working on the rear end right there.
Do you think practice is dull and boring? It's a thrill a minute out here. Little change at the top of the board except for 10th. Denny Hamlin on his 21st lap. Ran his quickest of the day. All the rest of those times were set within the top 3 laps. Tonight, rained out from yesterday, so they've had another hour to get their tempers all riled up and ready to go. It's the Camping World Truck Series, 6:30 p.m. for the debut of their season right here on Speed.
Of course, Kyle Busch should be in it. Elliott Sadler on the outside of the front row qualifying.
Hey, Mike, what's this 83 car? We had a shot of him, you know, from in the car, behind the car. This is what I call one of those Udden moments. Udden. Trying to get that baby back straightened up. I guarantee he was doing some steering and some gassing, and he didn't get behind. That's the main thing.
No, that was a nice save. And then on the next lap, Casey Kane is still behind Brian Vickers. And away we go.
And just look at it, just catapult it right by. It looks like it's got 50 more horsepower than the 2 car or the 16 car. There's that going off into turn 3 there.
Yeah. Man, it got Walgreens on the back of that car. You know, that's my favorite place to shop.
Is that right?
He loves to go to a
You can ask Larry. I go there all the time.
That 9 car, Casey Kane, remember Richard Petty Motorsports in 2010, moving over to the Ford camp. He has looked strong all weekend long. Won the dual race, second in the Budweiser shootout. Looks like Fords are just what the doctor ordered.
One of his teammates, A.J. Allmendinger, up there at the front of this pack. There's the dinger.
I think people have said it at Hammond. I hate to agree with Hammond, but the 09 car sure does look mighty stable and mighty fast.
And he's seen enough.
Engine number 9 might be the first one across the line.
And he may be headed to the garage for the final time. They've run a total of 36 laps with this car, so they may be done.
Just about 20 minutes left in this session.
Engine sounds quiet. Maybe got that plug check you were talking about.
Yes, sir. That's the last thing you do is cut her clean and coast in. Get me a tire sheet. Put her on 4 jack stands. Let's get her ready to race. That's music.
All right, we're going to release Darrell to go to Walgreens. No. He's got some pre-Daytona 500 activity to take care of.
I got a headache.
Real quick, give me a number. Who's your pick for tomorrow?
I'm going to stick with 29. Kevin Harvick. I got a feeling.
All right, bonus points if you recognized South Boston, Virginia Speedway there behind Carl Edwards. Scene of some great NASCAR Wheeling All-American Series racing, and formerly the site of NASCAR Busch Series action. Now, Carl Edwards, after he completes this run, the car's not done for the day, but he is. What's up, Steve?
Well, Mike, he and his wife, Kate, are expecting their first child. I spoke to Carl yesterday, and the due date is officially Wednesday, although Mike Wallace is, in fact, going to get in that 99 car. Mike said he's going to run 3 laps, go out there by himself just to make sure he's comfortable in that car, and this is completely a just-in-case situation for Carl Edwards.
So, Steve, I would assume he still right now is planning on running the Nationwide Series car later on this afternoon.
Yeah, and Mike told me, Larry, there is nothing wrong there. Carl has not had any phone call from home. Carl, in fact, flew home the night before last to see Kate, and Carl said everything's fine. Kate told him not to worry, which he said, of course I am, but the due date is Wednesday.
Always helps to have a backup plan.
Yeah, I heard he, of course, flew home earlier in the week, and I think he was home long enough to at least get the crib put together. Little honey-do list while he was there.
First time you do that, yep, that's a chore. We talked about porpoising earlier, and
not that particular kind. Our boys having fun and games in the truck, but you know, Mike, we've talked about it the entire speed weeks. You know, you're kind of locked into the rear springs. You're pretty much, with accepting of the adjustment, you're locked into the rear shocks. But where these guys have a lot of liberties to play, front springs and front shocks. You hear us always talking about balance, front and rear, and what you're trying to do is get the front to pretty much work with the rear, where it's not going up and down or as it goes through the dips, and that's a fine-tuning challenge, I promise you.
Brad Keselowski has logged 48 laps. Oops. Now that is one of the new. No, it's not. It's A.J. Allmendinger in a Ford. This is not one of the new FR9 powered cars.
But it definitely, what that is, that's the overflow from the radiator. And one of the reasons they put it right there is sometimes, especially as busy as a driver is here at Daytona, you don't get a chance to look at your water temperature gauge. And this telltale sign, then you start seeing water or steam come out that overflow. You know you're running hot, and it'll give you, all of a sudden you'll look down at the water temperature gauge. But it definitely looks like, I don't know if this is just from sitting on pit road as he's been doing, or maybe a little too much tape during this practice run.
About 15 minutes left in final practice for the Daytona 500. Meet the daring who face down fear behind the wheel. Wednesday, Speed introduces you to the men who provide the ultimate in personal safety. Dangerous drives, that's executive protection. Wednesday, 8 Eastern, only on Speed. Riding with Dale Jr. up there behind. Yeah, is this a dangerous drive, Larry?
There's been times I'm sure he would consider it. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has run a total of 38 laps in this 88 car. Right now he's 21st quickest. Follows Kyle Busch down through the tri-oval on the front stretch. Darrell and I were talking earlier. Jeff Gordon logging a lot of laps in that 24 car. He's run a total of 32 laps, but this is the first laps with this car since he ran it in the Budweiser shootout, and it's actually had a lot of repairs done since then.
Several drivers in the 40-plus lap range. It's going to be about 15 degrees warmer tomorrow at race time than it is right now, and we may see the sun, something that we have not seen for the last few days.
Yeah, I've got the record of the weather for all the Daytona 500s, and we're always normally at least in the 60s. There was one time where we had a high in the mid-50s, but normally in the mid-60s. In fact, Dick Bergman was telling me during one of the commercial breaks, track temperature right now is only 49 degrees.
Wow.
So as we were speaking earlier, they're just, even when it gets that cold, it's just hard to get heat in the tires, and it almost has as little bit of grip as when it's too hot.
56 is the anticipated high for tomorrow. If you're coming to Daytona Beach for the race, dress warm.
But the good news about that 56, that's much warmer than most anywhere else in the United States right now.
And as they say in Phoenix, it's a dry cold. No rain, none in the forecast.
A couple of Toyotas running together. We're riding with Denny Hamlin. He's 10th quickest, following Martin Truex Jr. in that 56 car. He's 35th quickest. Martin's run a total of 31 laps in this practice session.
There's Mike Wallace wearing his Nationwide Series suit. He'll be in the race later today, and he's going to run a few laps for Carl Edwards, make sure that he can reach everything and drive with a fair amount of comfort. Should, never mind the Aflac Duck, if the Stork calls. Carl may be on his way back to Missouri.
There's Carl talking to Doug Yates. I talked about Doug earlier, how much work's been done with this new Ford FR9 engine. But Mike Wallace, I mean, Mike and Kenny Wallace, those two guys run so well at Daytona and Talladega. They really understand the draft. Mike tried to race his way into the Daytona 500, did not make it, but he's won a Nationwide Series race here before.
On Baby Watch is Steve Burns.
Mike, thanks very much. And as you just documented, Mike Wallace is in the car. So the question is not about the car, but about Dr. Kate, your wife. How is everything?
Kate's doing very well. You know, she's back at home, and we're just making sure we got a plan for everything. And Mike was nice enough to come over and drive this Aflac Fusion, just check it out. And he said the seat didn't quite fit right, but or let me put it this way. It didn't look like the seat quite fit right, but he said it was perfect. So, you know, he's having fun, and just nice for him to get in this Ford and run it a little bit. But the plan is for me to run the Daytona 500. It's just, you know, a backup plan in case some circumstance, you know.
And the roses. Did you get the roses?
Yeah, I got the roses. I wasn't supposed to say anything about that. If you see my wife, don't say a word, but there's some roses coming for her tomorrow. Dang, I can't believe you did that.
I didn't mean to blow it. I was actually bragging on you.
Just run this tape later. But yeah, Kate deserves a lot more than roses, and she's a wonderful wife and just an amazing person, and she's my Valentine.
Attaboy. Good luck.
Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Don't worry. The secret's safe with us.
We've got another big pack that has formed out here. You know, this practice is winding down. I would say most of the cars you see here, this will be their final run in this final practice for the Daytona 500.
You can just hear them on the radios, Larry. Those crew chiefs saying 9 minutes left. See what you can do.
And you know what, Mike, who really catches a lot today when it's as cold as it is. We talk about them a lot at Daytona and Talladega, but at every racetrack is the spotters for these guys. And, you know, NASCAR requires a spotter to be on top of the grandstands through all the practices. You wouldn't want to run a practice here without one. There they are. And if you think it's the track temperature is 49 degrees, I would say the spotter stand temperature is probably, with the wind, you look at that flag right there, probably in the 20s.
It's not like they can run around or do much to generate any heat, so hopefully there's a few of those pocket heaters up there, and that's a tough job today. Maybe like penguins, they'll just all bunch together.
They'll be happier than anybody to see the red and the black flag.
You're not kidding. Speed's presentation of Sprint Cup Final Practice is brought to you by Alien vs. Predator, 2010's biggest multi-species, multiplayer event. By the Sponsifier. Visit ToyotaRacing.com and click on Design It, Enter It. And by TaxSlayer.com, proud sponsor of Bobby Labonte and the TaxSlayer.com number 71.
Well, there you see Sam Hornish in the 77 car. The teams, they've already selected their pit spots. Of course, you select them by how you will start the race. And Sam's been down there practicing pit stops. You come off the racetrack at 190, down to 55. As Darrell has pointed out, these pits look awfully slick with all the oil and all the grease that's laying in them. And we saw a lot of mistakes in the dual races on Thursday.
Speed building as he rolls through the turn number 2. Okay, and I was mistaken. I thought this practice was an hour and 20 minutes. It's an hour and 25. So there are now 10 minutes left.
That's not what the spotters wanted to hear, or the crew chiefs.
Sorry, Larry.
Sam, that 77 car, of course, the 3 Penske Dodges were all in the same dual race, but those 3 cars hooked up together looked awfully good and awfully racing.
They did. Steve?
And Mike, as you said, Jeff Gordon's put a lot of laps into this practice and just talked about the race car, said it's pretty good. I think it's not quite as fast as I'd like, so they're going to make a gear change and send him back out.
And you know, they're doing a little something underneath the front end there. You can adjust that splitter fore and aft. You can go out with it, you can slide it in, And the more you go out with it, the more front downforce it puts in it. And you have about a 4-inch window. I think it's from 2 to 6 inches that you can move that splitter, and it possibly looks like that's what they might be doing with this 24 car. The old package, there's no question, once you got qualified, you wanted that thing all the way out. But I think with these cars being a little loose, maybe with that fin on the deck lid and on the back window being bigger, that they're taking a little of the front downforce away to balance the car out. Now they definitely will want to get that car back out there, but you want to get it back out there in a pack. Just out there by yourself, you won't learn anything.
Paul Menard at the head of this pack. We understand quite a lot of back and forth went on in the Nationwide Series garage just prior to qualifying being canceled, such that Paul Menard could make his way into that race. Apparently he didn't have enough points, or on the priority list would not have made the show, but just prior to qualifying being called, several teams withdrew from the race, and that opened up a position so that Menard could compete in the 300-miler later today.
And one reason that's important, of course, it's just like in the Sprint Cup, Daytona is one of their bigger races, but my understanding, Paul Menard is going to be one of the drivers to do full schedules, Nationwide Series and Cup in 2010. See Jeff Burton in that 31 car, a backup car, as we documented. He's run the most laps of anyone, 53 laps on that 31 car.
A little bit of intrigue surrounding Michael McDowell and the number 55. There he is in his Toyota Camry, one of the drivers who raced his way in, one of the two drivers for Phil Parsons and Randy Humphrey. The other was Dave Blaney, who did not make the show. The quarter panels on that car are blank, which leaves McDowell just about 24 hours for McDowell and his team to fill them up. Now, Prism Motorsports, I believe over on the Nationwide Series side, they do, Michael told me yesterday, they do get a little help from and give a little help to Braun Racing. So it is a possibility that you might see Reed Soren sponsor Dollar General on this car tomorrow, or one of the other sponsors of cars that did not make the Daytona 500.
But you know, Michael did a phenomenal job of getting up on the wheel, as we like to say, and getting that car in. But who you really got to give a call to is his crew chief, Zach McGowan. With 8 laps to go in that first dual race, said, I think our best shot, unlike maybe what Max Pappas and Booty Barker did, let's get in here and get 4 fresh tires. Let's make one last adjustment for a short run, and it was enough that he could get up there and race his way in.
Pappas as well in the 13. The Geico car also makes the Daytona 500.
And again, Max Pappas, Booty Barker, his crew chief, like Jimmie Johnson in the 48 car, they elected to stay out, start at the front of the pack. And one of our bosses, Frank Wilson, pointed out to me that he feels strongly the reason that Chad Knaus and Booty Barker both made that call is they talk a lot together when we do the NASCAR Performance Show.
Right behind them, John Andretti, the Window World Cares Foundation Ford, who is locked into the 500. Three minutes to go in this final practice for the Daytona 500. The ToyotaRacing.com Sponsifier presents the fastest Toyota practice speeds of this session. Ambrose and Rudiman, almost teammates, alliance sharing information and technology. Folks, which is a mouthful, but it's Ambrose and Rudiman topping that list, then Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, and Michael Waltrip, the fastest 5 Toyotas.
Well, we made a note with that adjustment that we were watching Steve Letarte, that 24 make in the splitter area of this 24 car, how important it would be for him to get back out on the track and get in a pack of cars that looked like mission accomplished. He's out there in a pack of about 8 or 9 cars. This for sure will be all of these cars' his final run.
Dick David Rudiman is on the top 5 of all 3 charts: fastest lap, fastest 5 consecutive laps, and fastest 10 consecutive laps.
Okay, David, the car is fast, incredibly fast. How fast is that pit crew?
The guy's been doing a great job in the offseason and working really, really hard. So, time will tell, you get in the heat of battle and see how it works out. But do have a pretty good air and stream machine. We've been changing gears and air boxes, all that stuff to try to make it just a little bit better. But car handles well, tire wear seems pretty good and everything. So we'll just pack it in for the 500.
You're from Florida. Can you warm it up for tomorrow?
Man, I tell you, it's definitely cold down here, and it's very damp as well, so it doesn't help anything. Doesn't help my old neck either. I think I'm getting old.
Thanks, David. Good luck tomorrow.
Later on today, you'll see the NASCAR Nationwide Series, noon on ESPN2, and it'll make the most highly anticipated NASCAR debut since Dale Earnhardt Jr. right there, number 7, to be driven by Danica Patrick, who had a top 6 finish in the ARCA race last Saturday on Speed, helping to boost the ratings of that race almost 60% over the previous year's telecast.
And she had only tested a Nationwide Series car at a couple of tracks like Walt Disney World, never at a track this size with the aero package. But Mike, every time that track has been open for practice, that girl has been out there logging laps in packs of cars.
I think we had 18 Sprint Cup drivers entered in the nationwide race, and with qualifying rained out, the way that order of start was determined after car owner points and drivers who had won races, then it was by the luck of the draw after that.
And the reason that Danica will start where she's starting, which is I think around 14th or 15th, somewhere like that, is that's the owner points from the 11 team. And someone had said, and I think we've got the red and the black flag waving, the reason she's running the 7 number is that's actually her number in IRL.
The IZOD IndyCar Series. Steve?
Mike, with Denny Hamlin. And Denny, we seem to focus so much on the race car. I want to know how the driver is for the Daytona 500.
Good, ready to go, that's for sure. The conditions are a lot different than what we're going to see tomorrow, hopefully, if it warms up. So we're not too bad with our FedEx Camry. We're still not where I'd like to be, but we did make improvements today.
Denny, you said on trackside last night that you've run well in the Daytona 500, but you haven't finished well. What have you learned that can help you get to the end?
Well, usually I got one of the best cars, and we ended up finishing 30th because we get in the wreck. This year our car doesn't seem as good as what we've had in years past, so maybe I'll avoid that big one and finish up front.
Good luck tomorrow, buddy.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at practice results. Final practice for tomorrow's 52nd Daytona 500, and 2 of the Childress Chevrolets have led the session since it began.
And Mike, I will say, even though he changed his pick 3 times in the last segment he was with us, Darrell Waltrip's pick of Kevin Harvick, Burton and Harvick have the best 5-lap average and the best 10-lap average, so they're looking pretty good.
On down through the top 20, Bobby Labonte, 11th quickest lap of the day, and he had that wild spin off of Scott Speed early in the session, came back to run a bunch of laps.
Saw Michael Waltrip 12th quickest in a car that has not seen the racetrack since the Daytona 500 a year ago.
Well, look down here, 26 through 28. Jimmie Johnson, Kurt Busch, Jeff Gordon. There's a couple, 3 would-be contenders to win this race. Not that fast in practice.
But I'd say they will be contenders.
Bill Elliott, fast in qualifying, not so quick in practice, back there in 37th. Former winner of this race.
They struggled with Joey Logano's car in the beginning, couldn't get it going. They ended up running a total of 40 laps with that 20 car.
Coming up this evening at 6:30 p.m. right here on Speed. Rained out from yesterday, the Camping World Truck Series season opener. I don't know what it's going to take, Larry, but I think there'll be a big slingshot pass down the backstretch going into turn 3 on the last lap, and then it could be 1979, it could be 1976 again, but I'll bet it'll be a wild finish to tomorrow's Daytona 500.
I'm going to run out on the end of that limb. I don't know if it's going out on the end of limb. I think who leads the white flag lap will not lead back to the checkered flag.
The Great American Race tomorrow. Coverage begins at noon on Fox. The greatest drivers in America for the single biggest prize of the season. Thanks for being with us for Daytona 500 final practice on Speed.